Live tonight from the virtual Texas Motor Speedway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to TV's coverage of the 2020 Racing Full Throttle Series, powered by Boosted. So we're happy that you're with us at RacespotTV. We're tonight from the Great American Speedway alongside Justin Prince. My name is Evan Pasoko, and Justin, we're ready for round 5 of 2020.
Should be some exciting action here. These drivers getting ready for a whole new configuration of Texas Motor Speedway, the iRacing surface, where the
these drivers have been unfamiliar with, but I'll tell you what, this new scan might as well be just a whole brand new track, and it is going to race completely differently than what we're seeing and what we're used to seeing, I guess you should say, on the older version.
Yeah, absolutely, because many of these drivers with this current package previously could go near full throttle at both ends of the racetrack. It's much different now where you have to be very throttle management dependent in turns 1 and 2 to make sure you don't get too tight, slide up off the bottom. That allows you to carry near full throttle through 3 and 4 still, which means in one thing too, Evan, the bottom line gonna be the line you want to be on all night. If you lose that white line, you're potentially gonna drop like a rolling stone.
And you got a good preview of that over the weekend with the NASCAR Pro Invitational iRacing Series on Fox as they took to the Wild Asphalt Circus here in Fort Worth, Texas. And our turn here tonight for Full Throttle Cup Series action. Drivers just winding down to the final minute of the practice session, then they'll get set to go single car qualifying. But it adjusted, as you mentioned, with the race winners that we've seen this year. The big thing is making some necessary starts. It is currently that you have to start 10 of the races in this 20-race regular season for your win and get in count for the playoffs. But of course, that could change at any point, and I know that it is being reviewed for the time being. But as you see down the list on the left-hand side, all those races between now and Daytona in August, of course, are going to be those regular season events. There have been some drivers, notable drivers, who have missed races. Of course, race winner this year, Adam Benefield, short to start. That's why you did not see him on those top 20 or so in the point standings. There was a one-race suspension served by Sam Nieto. He returns to the racetrack tonight after he was parked for Homestead for intentionally wrecking somebody in Atlanta. There are no drop weeks, though, of these 20. So if you're a driver without a win, one missed race even could be the difference between fighting for the Full Throttle Cup and just being a spectator for all those races on the right-hand side of the screen by the time we get to the postseason.
Yeah, and that means you have to be able to make as many dates as possible because, yes, it is winter and you're in, but at the same time, while you want to be able to have that flexibility, you need to still be in that good points position. If you are consistent, you can potentially run in the top 20. If you miss a lot of dates, you potentially will fall out. But the question's going to be here, Evan, who's going to be able to get some good points here at No Limits Texas?
And that is the key, because to get this season started, of course, with, some things changing behind the scenes and whatnot. We kind of touched on it for the first week or so, Justin, but we started a little bit later than what we've been used to. This series typically got underway about mid-February, did not start until March, and, we have still been without an off week. This opening stretch of what is 6 races in a row, I believe, aside from the playoffs, going to be the longest stretch of races back-to-back in the regular season. So these drivers have really been having to work hard, keeping the nose to the grindstone, if you will, and it's been kind of a chaotic couple of weeks. I know that some of these drivers may have some extra time at home to get the practice in, as in a lot of parts of the country and the world, people are encouraged or directed to stay home and try to stay safe during this current situation. So, it is an ever-evolving situation, and happy that these Monday nights can bring a little bit of normalcy to everybody. As you see Thomas George on track right now, these drivers are in qualifying, so they're all going to be out on track by themselves. One lap is going to be the best one to count at the top. They get 2 attempts, so curious if the way that this racetrack is kind of wide open down in 3 and 4, if these drivers are going to be looking for that second time around to be their best lap.
Based on what has been seen by many drivers across the entire week, usually the second lap has been the better of the two by about a couple tenths of a second. It's about gaining enough momentum, though, Evan, on that first lap to be able to set up the second. If you mess up any point of the racetrack, have to lift off the throttle, get too tight, clip the apron, that could cost you 2 tenths and potentially up to 10 grid spots for tonight's action. And with it being such a track where track position is very important, qualifying is going to be very essential for these competitors tonight.
It is, and it always is. We always see as well, though, a percentage of the drivers actually opt to not take qualifying times, just to hang out at the back. I know that a lot of the conversation around sim racing the last 2 weeks has been the whole quick repair thing, and as always, there are never quick repairs available in the Full Throttle Cup Series, so that is something that these drivers are used to. So as you take a look at Joseph Tice right now, currently second on the board, trying to catch up to your current top of the board in Blake O'Connell. These drivers may opt to stay to the back if they think that because of the way this new track races, it may be chaotic early on. We are looking at 125 laps in distance. No shocker there. The last 2 times out, we've been to Homestead and Atlanta, both of those as well. Intermediate racetracks, all of those falling at 125 laps on the calendar. Second time around for Tice, top of the board, 28.416. So the one car looking pretty sporty. That's certainly a driver who's not going to play the let's hang out in the back and play it safe route. He's here to lead laps, get points, and hopefully go for the race win if he has the ability to. Tice comes into this evening to 5th in the championship. Second highest driver, though, in the points without a win so far, the highest of which is Rhett McBride. He's got 2 top 5 finishes in 4 starts and sits second in the points.
Now let's touch upon Rhett McBride of that whole Steel Horse Racing organization. Now we're kind of that conversation as you see John Ronan come down, one of the team members there. It's been surprisingly a strong season for McBride. We've seen him run in the top 10 many times before, Evan, but this year it seems it's like his performance has gone up an extra level. He's been able to maintain track position, keep his car clean, and has shown speed at all the various different types of tracks so far. I think having someone like Adam Benefield come into the stable might have helped a lot for that whole entire team's performance to bring themselves up each individually 5 grid spots and 5 positions on the track minimum on average gain compared to last season.
And we'll only have the time in this qualifying session. Now on board with Benefield there. Just to kind of recap, you mentioned the teams, how the team standings look for the first time. Flat Out Motorsports, new to this Full Throttle Cup Series, took over the points lead after last week's event. They leapfrogged Aegis, who dropped down 2, so Flat Out Motorsports with the most team points accrued, 354. They are 21 points ahead of the Steel Horse Racing drivers and 28 points ahead of Aegis. That is going to be a very tight 3-way team race where only the top 3 finishers from each team score points towards those team standings. It is really nothing official, Justin. There's, no trophy, no extra cash on the line at the end of the year for the team, as, unlike there is for the actual individual championship. But I've seen a lot of talk about it this year, so if the teams care and the drivers care, we should mention it. That seems to be a very interesting fight that we'll be keeping an eye on as the season goes down.
Yeah, it's been very tight with those competitors absolutely throughout this entire season, and they have been, a majority of those drivers for those teams, mind you, been the main talking points and main drivers inside the top 10. The question's going to be Evan, how they will do at Texas.
The qualifying session has drawn to a close, so let's go trackside and take a look at tonight's RacespotTV starting grid, boosted Club 125. Joseph Tice going to bring us to the green flag this evening. His 28.416 was good enough to top the board. He'll be leading us side by side with Bradley Burke. The 95 car will start in second position. Sam Nieto therefore picks up the third spot, barely squeaking out Gary Sexton, who will start in fifth position, Justin, and it is Kyle Trudell in P5.
Michael O'Ryan, one of the fastest cars in practice, starts in sixth. Has had a stellar campaign so far. He'll start in front of his teammate Grant Davis. He'll start alongside Brett McBride in row number 4. Rounding up the top 10 starting spots, Blake O'Connell will start alongside Steve Durham with a stellar qualifying run.
Continuing on down through just outside of the top 10, Daniel Scott starts from 11th with Rhett Nichols in the number 12 position. Daniel Everhart, we rode on the board with through qualifying, takes his Abruzzi machine off 13th with Thomas George in 14th position. James Pasquarello will roll from 15th spot. He's got Liam Sheen into P16. Ryan Chambers will start from 17th spot with Nicholas Caldwell in 18th, Michael Kaczynski 19th, and Jacob Bradford rounds out the top 20 on the outside of row 10.
Surprisingly rough qualifying run for Adam Benefield, 21st on the board, 28.826. He'll start alongside his teammate John Rodden. Chris Parkman was the last driver to record an official qualifying time. The rest of the field lines up on provisionals. Amongst those drivers, Andrew Freenosh will elect to start in the back. David Washington also will start alongside in 24th as a result. Bobby Cheney moves up to 25th. Anthony Emery bumped up to 26th. Jared Mogart up to 27th. With Stanford and Parrish amongst the top 29, Jonathan Dell will also join the competitors inside the top 37.
Yeah, a lot of cars not queuing. Steve Soa 31st, Colby Buck in 32nd, with Sean Kalis and Andrew Pellegrini on the next row, 33rd and 34th. Jeremy Rittenberg will roll from 35th, and then it is Matt Miller, Trevor Valderrama, Andrew Friedage, and Kyle Kamer, P39. As I look top to bottom at your RacespotTV starting grid. The field rolls off at 1 and 2. We've already told you a little bit about the new Texas Motor Speedway, which has the banking at 20 degrees down here at 1 and 2. 24 and 3 and 4 makes that into the racetrack a lot faster as we get set to go racing tonight for 125 laps.
And all that difference in banking as talked about makes it very unique in turns 1 and 2, where there's going to be, as mentioned, a lot of throttle control, a lot of steering control. There's a high chance of drivers getting tight and pushing off the bottom in turn 2, especially at the start. It could be interesting to see who dives their way to the white line and who gets stuck on that top line when the green flag flies.
As we are every Monday night, so happy that you're joining us here for RacespotTV's coverage of the 2020 Real Sim Racing Full Throttle Cup Series. The pace car is going to jump off it in this time, and we're going to put the field in the hands of the number 1 Chevrolet of Joseph Tice. He'll roll at a turn number 4 as we say, let's go racing from Texas. Green flag in the air, we're off and away for round 5.
And a major checkup on the outside. Steve Durham did not get going, and half the field is getting stacked up 2-3 wide into turn 1.
They are really tightly packed together as they race off and down into turns 1 and 2. Still full throttle, but throughout the pack, everybody kind of sitting on top of each other as they sit now 3 wide out down the back straightaway. That looks like a fight for about 7th position as the 24 machine of Grant Davis was making moves up at the bottom, but up at the front of the field, they figure itself out, and Joseph Tice leads lap number 1.
And it's going to be very intriguing to see how these drivers fight at the start, because there's been a different balance between some of these races at Texas. Some have traded back and forth for second and first, like they've been flipping cards. Others prefer to save their tires and go single file. Looks like we're going the flipping positions route with Nieto wanting track position.
Nieto was able to get down on the inside of the 95 of Bradley Burke, so he makes that pass. They'll exchange second and third. And again, Nieto coming back for the one-race suspension, dropped down way in the championship after being one of the top drivers. That missed start cost him 6 spots and points coming into this evening. Still in a playoff spot, but would certainly like to get things righted. He is also actively serving a 10-race suspension. Not the only driver that on suspension, or on not suspension, I should say probation, off the suspension mentioned Nieto, Parkman, Eberhard, old drivers that have gotten themselves into some extracurricular activities and are having an extra watchful eye cast upon them from the tower. You're on board with Grant Davis. I mentioned that his Exalta car had been making passes on the bottom just a bit, now going the wrong way. He's stuck up top of the 2, and that's going to allow Lariah, Eberhard, and now maybe even Daniel Scott to go by down on the inside.
Yeah, that was a perfect example where if as soon as you lose the bottom of the racetrack, you will drop like a rock, because that's the slower part of the racetrack. Even in 3 and 4, you can defend that part of the racetrack a little bit, but if you lose it in 1 and 2 especially, you will drop like crazy. Gary Sexton now lost the bottom. Here comes the freight train now with the 67 and the 5.
They are going to rock it up down here on the inside line. As you can see, that 65 machine, the 55 actually, with the 67 of O'Connell. All these drivers working on the inside of the racetrack. And that 44 of Michael Araya had a small hiccup there with some connection problems. He rolled out of the throttle to be a little bit cautious, and because of that, it's cost him some positions, as Eberhardt's been able to get on by Scott, Pascarella, Nichols, and now the 25 of Chambliss. So he's kind of getting teamed up on the back there with the side-by-side. That's where all the chaos is, as your race leaders have single-filed out just a little bit, looking off at the back of Daniel Eberhardt right now in P8.
And this is the way the races have usually flown here at Texas Motor Speedway, though, is you'll eventually get these little packs of about 6 to 8 drivers, be able to work together, but have to deal with dirty air off the respective cars. It'll eventually split itself up the longer the run goes. Speaking of splitting, Nieto split to the bottom.
And Sam Nieto going to go to the inside. It'll be the first challenge for the race lead we've seen, and he is going to get it hand over fist by a good margin. It is Nieto out of turn 4. New race leader, lap number 7. The 2 car gets to the top of the board for the first time tonight, and let's see how Tice responds. Does he go back on the attack? If not, he's got a lot of hungry race cars behind him who may just swallow him up here. Trudell peaked to the bottom at 1, can't do it, and now down the back straightaway. The fight's going to be behind for 3rd and 4th position, as it's the 7 to Kyle Trudell now going high to low, watching that 67 of O'Connell with a watchful eye on the bottom.
And I have to say, this has been a stellar race for O'Connell so far. He's had some very, very rough moments and bad luck a lot of the times this season. This is the best I've seen him do in the short run even here, Evan. He's really impressing me so far, up to that 4th position, +5 on the race already.
You're doing a very good job in these green flag laps early. Going to allow drivers kind of in that mid-pack up front range, outside of the top 5, but inside of the top 20, to be able to make big moves. It is going to be tough, though, with all that single-file traffic you see, and even some side-by-side further back for the cars who didn't queue to do the same thing. Here comes Tice, though. He'll go back to the inside of Nieto. Challenge for the race lead. At the same time, O'Connell going to get around the 7 of Trudell for 3rd, as the 1 cart of Tice not all the way by. Sam Nieto keeps the nose. Now he tries to get alive, but he's not clear. He comes over the nose of the 67. Nieto's into the outside wall, and it is a mess in 3 and 4. Caution flag flies.
And it just looked like a bit of miscommunication there, because Nieto essentially thought he was clear. Problem was, you see right from the onboard, O'Connell, he was still there, just on the bottom side and wasn't backing off. And Nieto tried to make space and just about nearly clear himself there, Evan. That causes the incident.
At a tough break, you'll go on board with O'Connell here. I don't think it's the case of a late move. I mean, he's been there the whole time down the back straightaway, and Nieto just comes on down, contact, and fortunately enough for O'Connell, who again was the innocent bystander with all of that, he was able to get down and out of the way, and he's going to be okay here. The big loser, and that's Bradley Burke in the 95 car, who showed really good speed earlier in practice. He's involved and gets a pretty good bit of damage, as that car was also stuck parked, and he and Nieto are both smoking as they get down to the pit lane for some urgent needed repairs. So race leader is going to be headed down to the pit lane, this time through. Joseph Tice leads them in at lap number 11.
Here's the good news, though, with the caution flag, Evan. It's now a pretty secure one-stopper the rest of the way, because the max on the fuel at Texas Motor Speedway, 62 laps, the majority of the competitors. If you're Dale Jr., 66 laps on Sunday. So you can basically, if you want, split the race right up the middle from here.
And you can see that even with so few laps on the tires, that everybody does want to just go for 4, and it does make the possibilities of maybe trying to go for the one-stopper a little bit more plausible, as one car is going to burn it out of the pit lane for the number 1 pit stall, safely stays in front. The 67 of O'Connell, though, does have a little bit of right front damage. I'm not sure if it gave him the option to repair it, but either way, opting not to, so he stays in P2, so O'Connell second, Trudell third, McBride fourth, and Eberhardt in the number 5 position will be the way they run off of the turn.
I think O'Connell's going to be somewhat okay. He's going to be down a little bit of suck-up ability in the draft, but it would be 100% worse if that was more crinkled up. It's just a small, very small cut, it looks like, to the right front fender that he's got to deal with. That's not too much of a big deal in my opinion at all. It's the drivers who ended up getting involved in the second parts of the chain reaction, like Thomas George, who got some damage amongst some of the drivers on the top half of the field, where I'd be a bit more concerned, where they got some pretty big shots.
And we'll, of course, see as this race goes on, as it looks like some more cars now diving back to the pit lane as we maybe look for the lights to go off on top of the pace car. The fact that, as always in these races, you know, keeping the car in one piece is half the battle, and just trying to stay in this one, especially for, you know, the drivers who, I don't want to call them back runners, because one of the things that we find so fun about this Monday night series, Justin, is the talent and the new talent that keeps coming in, you know, with new faces joining the series year over year. So, you know, those guys who are 25th placed or so cars, if they could kind of position themselves well, they could, you know, break the top 20, get valuable points, and if you're starting to crack the top 20 here and there, you could be finding yourself funning for that 16th or 15th spot, and maybe even having a chance to get to the playoffs. And once you get there with the win and you're in, who knows?
Exactly, and I think there's a lot of drivers who are very capable of doing that, who are in that situation. The majority of the drivers have made a majority of the starts so far, but keep an eye, for example, on one of the drivers you just referred to in that situation. In his second start of the season, Rhett Nichols in the 55, he started 8th in that 4th row on the top line. He's quietly moved himself up 4 positions from the start and looked pretty competent in practice.
Well, we'll see how this restart shakes out. Of course, it was a good one last time by for Tice, as he was able to lead the opening 6 laps of this race. Though now in control of the actual restart, not having to go on the drop of the green flag if he gets a little bit more creative. The one car opting to start for the inside row, it'll be him and Blake O'Connell bringing the field side by side at a turn 4. Green flag in the air, 13 laps down from Texas. Here comes Trudell, though, the 7 Ford. He'll come up the bottom as we fight for second.
Joseph handled that restart perfectly, starting first gear to get that extra bit of boost. And now it'll take another couple laps for everyone to get back to his rear bumper. That's one of the main things when it comes to Texas. Originally, with the banking being higher up in 1 and 2, drivers were able to get much easier to the back end on these starts. Not so easy now. Daniel Eberhardt, he's got a good draft and has some help from Daniel Scott.
Eberhardt started in 13th spot. Right now, fighting for 3rd on the bottom of the 5 are Rhett McBride. Scott, the 26 you mentioned there in line as well, washed up a little bit on the entry, so he's not going to be a part of the battle. Eberhardt almost all the way clear, but not quite yet. Now, tucking in line is the 5, and I think that's what we saw at Nieto earlier, is just the way that this seed races, Justin. Drivers don't want to be stuck on the outside at 3 and 4. You're actually going to lift out from keeping a nose on the outside to get in line. It's exactly what we saw out of the 5 and McBride there, as he allows Eberhardt to take over 3rd. So 1st, 2nd, 3rd, all nose to tail through turn number 2. These cars not dropping down below 175 in the center of the corners.
Yeah, so far, some of these drivers have to make sure, though, Evan, that they're able to maintain the right front, because the camber in the fixed setup for this series and these competitors across the iRacing service is set fairly high, around 2 degrees more than what you typically see from most teams in open setups. So, in turn, if you don't have your camber set up, Evan, to explain that simply, you will potentially burn up your right front because it's allowing too much heat, and because it's set up more so for the short run. That's why you add more camber. So many of these drivers who babied their tires early might be rocket ships later on, or we might see the vice versa for these guys fighting up front, like Eberhardt, who just came up to 2nd.
He continues to charge through the field. Daniel Eberhard in the practice session was not even a top 10 car. Was a little bit better in Q. As I mentioned, he started in 13th, but under race trim, Eberhard has looked really good. He has been very good to start this season. That trip to victory lane sits third in the overall championship standings with 3 top 5s and 4 starts. The Nani car has been feeling it so far, but it's not like he was able to get around McBride and take off. The 5 still right there. Trudell in 4th as well, so if he doesn't make a move on Tice here sooner rather than later, expect that Hot Lap podcast machine to McBride from behind to get back up on him and take second back. As you see, they'll go up to the fence at a turn number 2, and Trudell peeking to the inside. Here we go for third.
And you can see right there McBride just lifting off the corner, because if you go too high up on that banking, you start hitting the bumps and the marbles. It pushes you up the racetrack. That's what happened there with McBride. Just safely give away the position. It's too early to try and block all the way down to the bottom of the racetrack. We might see that later on if it becomes a short run situation. But at this point, there's a lot of give and take in this field right now.
That's a good thing to see, as well as that 5 got a little bit aggressive there. Dipped those left side tires down to the white line to get up on the inside of Trudell. And now they'll go side by side for this third position. The assist going to come to the bottom, as you can see Scott and Sexton there tuck in line and almost push the 70 car up and through. So because of that, it's Trudell on the outside losing out, and the 5 of McBride winning that fight for the moment. Also saw some side by side further down the road. Looks like Michael Laraya, Jared Mogard in 8th and 9th position fighting all the battles going on throughout the field. You'll see the names moving around at the top of the screen, so you can keep an eye on where everybody is. But so far, 22 laps in now, we've still got 37 cars on the lead lap, and all of this fighting keeping us entertained inside of the top 5.
Yeah, but all of this is Joseph Tice's dream at this point, because he's got clean air, which means he's burning the less amount of tires on the track. It's to the point where drivers know if they keep on going back and forth, all these competitors are going to end up burning up their equipment. It's to the point where they're communicating with each other. Okay, we got to think smart here. If we want to try and take the lead back here, why fight this early on when we're only about 10 laps into the run? Eberhard, though, gets the worst of that call.
He's going to go way up the banking, up and into the light stuff, out of the groove, and that's going to cost him a handful of spots as Scott, Trudell, Sexton, and maybe even Nichols, who was on the bottom right here, all got by him. So I don't know what the issue was there for the Nani car, but he just got way out of spots and just tried to cross the 55 over there. Nichols saw that, came down the block. That's something that we were kind of talking about pre-race, Johnson, with drivers wanting to protect the bottom. It's almost like an IndyCar race here at Texas. You do not want somebody to get on your inside, and your race leaders are doing a good job of getting up to the wall, but every time somebody makes a move to the inside, you'll see a lot of blocking, sometimes all the way down to the white, as they try to keep that precious real estate.
Yeah, it's like a revolving door in positions at this point, the way it is in terms of how the draft effect comes in. And that makes it so difficult, though, because it was talked about a little bit by Landon Castle for the pro event on Sunday, where it's a balance between preserving your tires, but defending track position and where you're at. So you have to find that perfect balance as a driver to make sure you don't burn up your right front tire while keeping your position, while making sure you don't give up the bottom. Many of these drivers are just saying, you know what? If you get to my inside, I'll let you have it.
And we'll see if that changes as we get into the later parts of the race, if these drivers aren't going to want to fight over this. Eberhard again, though, way up and out of the good stuff, and this one's going to cost him at least half a dozen positions, as in 2. Mogard went for the crossover, and I don't know if the Nani car, Justin, just in the pack, lost the air on the front of the car, and that front grip just went straight up the hill, but that's 2 times now that Daniel Eberhard has thrown away spots. We had just complimented him on charging through the field. He has fallen now back down to 13th. Here's the replay. There's no contact from Mogard. He just slides across his nose, gets way up there, and in order to make that corner, he had to get way off the throttle.
It almost looked like he got into the gas too early, Evan. That's what caused that there, because he tried to maintain the same amount of speed at that point. Then up the track that car went. So he just hit too hard on the gas, and in turn, that car isn't going to essentially turn easily once that gets tight. That's what happened to Eberhard, but now, because it's fighting for 5th on back, the top 4 is pulling away from this group.
They are able to pull away, and if you get a green flag stretch in, it is not going to be chaos, 100% of the time. And the reason the race leaders have gotten a bit of an advantage is because of that fight for fifth that you're watching, with Scott going backwards on the outside and Rhett Nichols now taking over P5. As of course, anytime you're going side by side racing, you're slowing each other down. The race leaders, despite racing close quarters, have really not been trying to make moves on each other. McBride has been on the back bumper to Tice for a while here, but it just has not gone to make a move, unlike these cars. Look at them jockeying all down the back straightaway. All of that stuff there is scrubbing off speed and is going to allow those top four to get even further out in front.
Look who's in this mix, though, of this top 10 battle here. Andrew Freenosh, he's been elected to start at the back just about every single race so far this season. He's quietly made himself 28 positions in the span of 30 or so laps in this race. That is ridiculous, Evan.
It really is, and I don't think anybody's shocked that Andrew Friedage is one of the fastest cars on track. However, I do think people would be surprised, Justin, if you told them, just based on how well he's been the last 2 seasons, a back-to-back Full Throttle Cup champion who now dived to the inside of the 25 at Chambliss for P8. For all the races he won last year, to go through these first 4 weeks without a win and not even a top 10 car in the points, it has not been the start to the year that Friedage, I'm sure, envisioned. And listen, I don't think he's in a dangerous spot at all. The wins will come. He has the speed. But a couple more incidents, and you never know if you start to get down close to that cut line. We still have, after tonight, 15 regular season races to go. So I don't think you got to hit the panic button. But if I'm Friedage, after this first month is over, I got to take a look in the mirror and figure out what has been going wrong.
Yeah, it almost is comparable to what was discussed when we talked to him at the start of last season. Remember, he talked a lot about having major bad luck until right about this point in 2018's campaign. So it's kind of parallels to that, where he's been involved in incidents whenever he's gotten speed or started at the back in the first few laps and has been behind the 8 ball just about every single race. This is the cleanest he's been able to keep this car at this point of a run since race number 3, essentially, at Atlanta.
I mean, the easy answer would be for Friedage to qualify up front, but I don't think that is what the issue is here. Even when he's been able to find success, he's been kind of playing by those same rules of, I'm still just going to start at the back and drive my way through the field, and that's how it's going to be. Want you to fight for the race lead now, as Kyle Trudell in the 7 car had been in the race lead, was able to get it away from Tice, with 1 car now challenging back to the bottom. He'll clear at a turn 2, take the race lead back, and Rhett McBride in the 5 now, side by side in a fight for second. Gary Sexton, the 3rd car in line. But what this battle has done, Justin, is it has allowed those 5th place on back cars to reel them back in. Jared Mogard, P5, going to be a part of this battle shortly.
Yeah, because of what Kyle Trudell tried to do on the top side there, they lost 3/10, that whole top 4 grouping. And that's similar to what we've seen in the qualifier race when it came to even lap traffic. You get side by side for too long, that's how much time you can lose each and every lap. And now Mogart, he's got the perfect opportunity to pry open the bottom and make this lead pack a bit bigger. This also helps that blue and white 88 get in the lead pack draft.
And Mogart is another one of those drivers as he wins out in this exchange, and in front of him now, Sexton's going to go to the inside of McBride in a fight for second. Mogart's been one of those drivers who is, not part of the big teams representing Maxed Out Sim Racing Network. He is just a single operation, and the cool thing about that is only Malik Ray as a single team representative is better than him in the team points. So Mogart has been one of the best cars, and he almost lost it there. Sexton just came across the nose, and I think Mogart, Justin, cut him a break, because if not, I was seeing that 13 car headed to the grass, so Mogart may have spared him there.
It almost looked like that wasn't completely intentional there, Evan, though, because we've seen a little bit of a squiggle by Sexton off the corner. That block, though, that was a little bit more so to try and make sure that he protected the bottom, but the more Sexton fights Mogart, the more risk he's putting himself in for potential contact and everybody else to turn their intensity up.
And this big pack, again, is kind of ruining what the race leaders wanted. They wanted the funny to be going on behind them so they could keep it low-key. And just kind of get out in front and do their own thing. But look at this, 3 wide looking down the back straightaway, and he's going to come into it. That is Andrew Farinaj. He's going to squeeze Parkman out of the middle as Trudell came down for the outside. Those are bold moves from Farinaj that I think so far this year, Justin, he may have been shied away from. You're on board with the 55 machine. They have Rhett Nichols behind. He rides on the bottom in P8.
And I think it was just the case of Andrew saying, I've got to run, I'm not giving up of it, and there's a caution out in the corner.
The second caution flag of the night. It is down in 1 and 2. I see Shade Parrish involved. The 4 car is also around, and it was a lot of contact between Anthony Emery and Shade Parrish. You saw the aftermath. Let's see how it happened, Justin, down to turn 1.
Yeah, you seen first off there was a car having trouble, and then yeah, that was Emery just giving a little bit of help, and up the track goes Parrish. So there was just a tiny little bump there, Evan, on the corner entry. Drivers have been backing up the corner significantly to save the tire. Others haven't. And this was just before that, too, with the checkup, mind you, with Stanford hitting the apron.
Yeah, there was that slow car in front, which caused these guys to shuffle a little bit. The 4 had been all over the back of Parrish for basically the entire lap before that, and there is eventually when the contact came to be. Of course, the big hit was down in 3 and 4, where you aren't getting off the throttle as much as you are in 1 and 2. I thought that maybe the explanation for that, Justin, could have been that, well, down at that end of the racetrack, you're getting off much more down in 3, but both ends of the racetrack leads me to believe that those drivers were just racing a little bit too, and they needed to be at lap 39.
I think there is that possibility, have to say, though, because of all that, yes. But I think it was more so 3 and 4 because you don't want to run over the car that's cradling the apron. 1 and 2, I think it was more so maybe some of that factory in, but at the same time, just a difference in when they were letting off by like 50 feet.
Either way, both cars end up wrecked, and your race leaders are onto the pit lane. It is not going to be Tice off first. It looks like Steve Soa is going to drive through the drag race for the cars with Service side by side. And I think by inches, Joseph Tice stays in front. At some racetracks, Justin, that actual scoring line off of pit road is right after the box, but not here at Texas. Tice had a long way to go and just barely. See all those white lines? At half the racetracks, that's where it scored, but it's not scored here till the yellow line down where the orange cones are, and in a dead heat, Tice maintains that lead, but Rhett McBride certainly gave him a run for his money.
Yeah, that was extremely tight, and remember, that is a sector, or segment rather, you have to keep an eye on making sure you don't speed in either to make sure you get that little advantage. So it all was the difference, I think, there, Evan, of being able to launch well off the boxes to be able to have that bottom lane for this upcoming restart here.
And you see the 75 car bringing it back down to the pit lane. That is Steve Soa, who started towards the back. I think he missed his pit stall as well last week. So going to be the second week in a row that he misses the stall. But he does bring the Bud Light Chevy down and in for service. And I'm sure based on that I'm going to be giving a call that he needs a brighter pit sign, I think. And we'll probably have that painted up by next week. But I think because more cars are onto the pit lane, Justin, I would have expected the lights out on the pace car that time. It doesn't happen, so we're gonna have to take at least one more trip around for service here as we're inside of the 100 lap to go margin, and on the strategy kind of to the point where if this thing had gone green, this would have been the first cycle of pit stop. So one pit stop cycle or 2 pit stop cycle, it doesn't really matter at this point. No matter what your intentions were going in, everybody now at this point on, if it were to go green, would be looking at a 1 stop to get the distance.
Now it's the question, though, Evan, of when you come down, because do you go for the severe undercut? Do you split the race up the middle, or do you try and stretch it out and hope and pray for a caution flag? That's going to be the major question mark for many of these drivers, and I think it's going to come down in part to the strengths of some of the competitors and what their preferences are. Wouldn't be surprised to see drivers pit after 30 laps. Wouldn't be surprised, though, if major parts of the field wait until at least 45 laps into the run or so, give or take.
And just an update on, the first two incidents in this one, looking like Sam Nieto and Anthony Emery, the two drivers that involved in the incident, have not claimed any responsibility for the caution. So that'll go to a post-race review. If you're not quite familiar with how things go here in the RealSimRacing Full Throttle Cup Series, if you claim responsibility for a caution, it is just 1 point. If you do not, you get 2 points. But Justin, an interesting thing, we talked about Nieto coming back from suspension and being on probation. Probationary drivers get 2 times the penalty points per incident, and because he just returned from suspension, he's sitting at 4 points. If he were to get an unclaimed yellow, 4 points would actually put him over the limit, and that would maybe park Nieto for a second race in 3 weeks.
Yeah, and he's not going to be happy once he gets that exact detail here, so that's going to be absolutely killer for him in the point standings. Mind you, he was the first DNF of this race too. So it's been not a good start to the season after so much speed shown. Everything's just falling off a cliff. It's going to be a tough recovery drive for him the second half of the season.
And one of the nerdy parts that we would think, well, if I'm in that position, even if the guy behind me cleaned me out, I do not want to risk it. I would claim it just to make sure that I'm confident that no matter what actually happened, it doesn't have to go to a review. I'll just take the 2 points for saying I did it, stay below the limit, and kind of suck it up. So that'll be interesting as we have to go to the tape after the checkered flag this evening. The pace car is off and in, though. This restart's going to come with 43 laps down from the Great American Speedway back through the gears. Green flag flies. A much better jump this time for the high side. McBride stays second, and it's Sexton on the third.
Yeah, Joseph Tice that time tried to stack them up, but a huge run for Sexton. He wants to take away the bottom. As cars are sliding behind them, the Nationwide machine slided around. That was Parkman on the apron.
Parkman got way down there. He's able to hang on, but he's going to lose a ton of speed. He just got sideways on his own. There was not any contact there. Let's take a second look again. You're looking for the 88 Chevy. Tucked in line behind Friedage, and it just broke sideways. I don't know if he was trying to transition from the top to the bottom in the center of the turn or what, but that car got way loose. He was funded with Friedage top 10. Last time by, scored in 16th position, so that really hurts him as everybody is chasing race leader Joseph Tice down into 3 and 4. The battle on track is between Friedage and Nichols, a fight for 6th and 7th.
Yeah, but Nichols has the problem of he's stuck on the top side, and as seen, the first 10, 15 or so laps, you lose the bottom, you're likely dropping back this time. Mogart will now make Sexton drop back.
He's got to cycle back in line, and for Sexton here, there's not many other options. You can't go forwards because Mogart just lit up on you, and you can see the challenge coming to the bottom by Trudell, the 13, a little bit close that time. So Trudell is by. McBride clears. Friedage also on through. And another driver in Gary Sexton, who had been oh so consistent to this point now, he drops to P7 and maybe worse now. Chambliss and the number 67, Blake O'Connell, fighting with him in turn 2. O'Connell can't quite get all the way around. We'll see if the 13 now has got a counterpunch.
Now this is going to be interesting because Sexton is now at the same problem as Nichols. Just a freight train of cars, and the quicker you can get to the bottom, the more better the situation. So this is, well, as you can see, Sexton does the right move, backs off the gas and closes the hole before it shuts. Now it's an 11-car train to the front.
And I'm looking at that 25 of Brian Chambliss, who we're seeing coming off of the back straight now, and is finding it in the number 8 position. A throwback paint scheme to, I think that's the 2012 Jeff Gordon TMNT car. So that's a cool throwback on that 25 machine. Is again, he started in 17th and has worked up to P8. That is an impressive stat if it could stand alone, Justin, but unfortunately, it's going to be compared to Andrew Friedage, who started in 38th position and has gone to 5th, and as well Jared Bogart, who I gave the call to earlier, started 27th position. He's now P2, and he's got his sights set on the race lead.
Now it becomes here the question, does Mogart take the first run, or does Tice try and defend? Mogart's been aggressive to try, pry that bottom line away each and every time. That time, I think Tice has been keeping an eye on how Mogart's been making these passes and blocked that lane. Now McBride takes away the bottom.
And McBride's got that 5 car. Basically, every time we see him, he is glued down to the white line. Got a little bit of a wiggle there. One thing that has not changed with Texas, with the repave and the rescan, is that you do not want the left side tires down and onto the flat down with that 24 degrees of banking. So more cars down low than high, because the fast lane, just like on the freeway here at Texas, all the way to the left, slow lane on the right-hand side. And Mogard, after I just mentioned, he was probably going to challenge Tice for the lead. He had closed in on him. Blink of an eye, he's back to 5th position, with Eberhardt getting a nose in front of him off of 4.
Yeah, it's just a complete rotisserie chicken, almost like, of the top position again. It's just been a constant theme where you just need to make sure you save the tires, don't push too hard off the corner exit in turn 2. If you get a good enough run, you're potentially in a great spot to get to the bottom side in turn 3 or down past the quad oval into turn 1. So it's just kind of a strategy game, almost a chess match, if you will, of deciding how you will take the corner to be able to maximize how quick you can get the car to try and fight for the lead like McBride is doing.
McBride in the 5 car to the inside of Tyson once more. 1 car doesn't really put up much of a fight. He's gonna take it easy up top and all the way at the front of the field. New race leader, the 5 of McBride. They're all gonna have to cycle low though. That's lap traffic up top, and Bradley Burke, who's gonna fall way back with a damaged car. It was a fast car earlier on today, but after starting in 2nd position, was involved in that first incident, and Burke is now down in 38th. He just fell 2 laps down. Tough break for a car that showed a lot of speed to get the night underway. But now the McBride's gone to the race lead. Ferdinand followed him through to 2nd, so race leader Joseph Tice has fallen down to position number 3, and it's kind of funny. McBride in first, started in top 10. The car behind him didn't. Tice did in 3rd. The car behind him didn't. It's a very mixed bag at the front of the field. Drivers who have been able to hold their speed up front and stay there, and cars who have been on the charge. And one of those chargers is Daniel Eberhardt. He goes to the inside for 3rd, as here comes Farinaj looking for the race lead.
And Farinaj is a threat at all the tracks where tire wear matters. This is where it's definitely mattered so far on the long runs that we've had. Now he's up to the point, and he's got his best buddy in Eberhardt, who has been a very difficult foe to fight with, to deal with next. Behind him.
Yeah, Farinaj gets to the top of the board for the first time, it feels like, in quite some time. But this driver is did a very good job thus far this year. Just hasn't been able to close them out when it matters the most. Farinaj, headed into this evening, has led some, looks like just confirming the number here for the laps led. Farinaj has only led 11 laps, so it's not a ton. You're seeing Tice, though, in the Wanda machine, dropping back on the outside as he just lost a lot of speed that time through 3 and 4, all the way to the point where Chambliss has passed him. So he's gone from P1 to 8th in about 5 laps.
Yeah, that's because last time by in that section of the racetrack, he scrubbed the outside wall. And that is such a simple mistake you can do at this racetrack. Just push tight off turn 2 and completely smack it. That's where a lot of the incidents usually happen at Texas, is on that corner exit. And now Tice is down straight line speed compared to the rest of the drivers in his lead draft.
And you can see Mogard looking to the inside, because things up front just keep on ticking. This time, Kyle Trudell is going to be the one to be freight trained as Mogard gets back around him. All of these drivers have been swapping these spots back and forth amongst each other, but a new face is Blake O'Connell, the 67 car with the VGK colors on that Ford Mustang. Started top 10, but it's his first time in the top 5 tonight. It may be short-lived, though, because McBride going to bring it right back to him.
Don't forget, Evan, he was up to his highest 4th position. In fact, up to 2nd, I should say, for the first caution flag. Then he had to deal with the damage on that right front fender, and he's done a good job to get himself back up to the field. Here's the thing, though. The drivers in front of him are about a couple miles an hour quicker with the draft, and he's lost the bottom again.
Yeah, he opted not to get any of the damage fixed, but he was on pit road. That way he was able to maintain second off of the pit lane. You mentioned on that first caution, but it's kind of been up and down through the running order since then as everybody up front trying to take care of themselves. And once again, seeing that little bit of a breakaway for the top four as now O'Connell's going to try the outside. The, again, bottom lane has kind of been where all of the passes have been made, so O'Connell didn't really have much of a choice unless he can squeeze in between Nichols in the 55 and Tice in the 1. I thought maybe that was the opening that he was looking for there. He's not going to commit to it yet. Now down into 1, he will. So that one and Tice is unable to jump on, and O'Connell drops to P8 again, just like that. Very easy, but you've got these groups of cars running so close together to work for 5-10 laps to get a spot or two, and then to lose all that and more in a blink of 1 or 2 times around the racetrack.
Yeah, that's how simple it is when it comes to this racetrack, right? So it's just a conveyor belt. So that's why many drivers try and fight as hard as they can, knowing that, yes, it potentially burns up their equipment, but they prefer to keep the track position rather than lose it, to say the very least, because of the difficulty to make those runs, to make the passes right about this point of each and every green flag run here at Texas Motor Speedway with that different banking. By the way, Evan, we're just about to reach, not only halfway, but the green light to make it on fuel.
Yeah, this race is going to be halfway home. You would be able to stretch the distance, but expecting all these cars, if we can stay green, to come in at about lap number 80, 85 or so and split this run in half. But again, that is a big if we could get to that point. And a lot of the time with the old package with these cars, when we would get green, we'd obviously have a better chance of going green for longer. The longer we stayed there, as Everhart's going to back everybody up second on to back. The concern would have been a self-spin. Now, though, you got old tires, but you don't have that separation, so the big risk still comes from maybe driver-to-driver contact as Mogard late diving to move to the bottom, trying to fight for second, but he did not get enough of an arc into the corner, can't make it stick, and his spot in line is still there for him. Gets back up atop Trudell before the 7 could try to pounce.
There's that exact example right there. About this point, this is where if you have had dirty air or a lot, that's where drivers are starting to push, and that's where they're going to have to get off the throttle a lot. And if you have to get off the throttle a lot, Evan, even hit the brake, you lose all the momentum you need to be able to keep up. So we're seeing that now, it looks like, with just about all the drivers here that have really been dicing up in this field rather than saving their tires in the first 20 laps.
And if this does stay green, we'll see if they pay the consequence for this. As always, in this Full Throttle Cup Series, Justin, we're talking about dynamic track conditions. And for the last couple of weeks, what that has meant was, with the dynamic weather, is real hot temps. Not tonight, though. Track temp only 82 degrees Fahrenheit. That's some, 50 degrees cooler than what we saw just a few weeks ago. So a huge difference, giving these drivers a lot more grip as this fight is between Trudell and Mogard for third.
Yeah, and that allows a lot more speeds here, too, when you think about it, because we're seeing the lap times compared to very hot track temperatures, which are up to about 4/10 quicker than what they would be at, say, 103 to 110. Oh, boy!
That was the contact, I think it was the 5 moving up just a little bit, but honestly, I think Mogard was trying to pinch there. He ended up making contact with McBride. Watch the replay here, and we're going to go on board with Mogard. Just watch the seams on the racetrack as he's kind of working his way down, and again, I think the 5 moved maybe a bit, but Mogard was really on the door of the cars there, not really giving him much room for errors. Look at the overhead look this time.
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. McBride pushing up on Apex. Mogart trying to add a little bit of a diamond, almost like, to try and get some of that extra speed and that half a lane of rubber. And just both of them met up in the middle, to put it simply. That's lost them a lot of time, especially Mogart, and the rest of the drivers are still able to pull off away. A major stack up, though, with the traffic.
It is, once again, everybody trying to get around Bradley Burke, who got torn up in that earlier incident. One of the best cars early is now just a moving chicane. And listen, Texas Motor Speedway is really, really wide, but unfortunately, there isn't a lane up on the outside. So every time you have to kind of deal with some traffic there, it's going to get tight, especially if a side-by-side battle comes up on them like that. Fortunately, not going to be a factor. Everybody's okay. and they are able to safely navigate their way on through. Watching the battle with Mogard, Nichols, and company, there's a small gap ahead of Mogard, some 0.8 of a second separate him and the car in front of him, Brian Chambliss. So maybe a little bit of a top 5 breakaway in the works as those top 5 are single file, and Mogard throwing a block as Nichols looked to the inside. He came down and shut it down.
And Mogard has been one of the more aggressive drivers tonight, right? And there's some of that aggression right there. He doesn't want to allow anyone to make a pass, so he's not allowing any sort of give and take, and that's frustrating as a driver when you know you have a chance to be quicker, you're losing tons of time, and then you have Mogard trying to defend 2-3 lanes at the same time to make sure he keeps his track position. So this might be a spot where some of these competitors might think of a potential undercut strategy to try and get away from Mogard and then plan things out and hope things go green to be able to gain net positions from losing time. Lead has changed hands though, Eben. Eberhardt has ripped away the point.
He did that lap number 71, down at 1 and 2, I'm going to caution a flag at lap 72, smoke, and it is John Rodden, the 33 car, around in turns 1 and 2, and this is not unassisted. We'll get a second look on the RacespotTV replay, but it looks like he had some help right there. Is actually at the opposite end of the racetrack, but the same 2 cars, Justin, Rodden and Scott, going to come together when they get back to turn 1.
Yeah, they made contact at both ends of the track, and I understand the reason Rodden may have been off the gas there. I'm just not understanding the reason Scott just shot to the right to clip the left rear of the 33. Here's the full lap prior to set up all things, because Rodden, he got a good amount of speed down the back straightaway. Wanted to make a pass, try to get his way back past that Jacksonville Jaguars machine, had to avoid a squeeze. Then Scott tried to come down on the quarter panel. That sends the 33 sliding. Liam Sheen, he gets through at what is looking like to be a perfect time in hindsight. Lap traffic, Rodden tries to get off the gas, and Scott decides, you know what, let's hit the left rear.
And I was looking even further back to see if there was more history than just that incident between those two this race. They'd kind of been stuck around each other for quite some time, and you know, let's ride on board with Daniel Scott here as he closes in on the bumper. Can clearly tell the car in front of him is a little bit slower, and maybe a little bit of a choke up on the wheel once or twice into the left rear, spins about. That'll probably get a look at it. Post-race review, Justin, we have seen a suspension and a handful of probations handed out for intentional wrecks the last 2 weekends. So we haven't even gotten to the short tracks. These drivers all over to each other. Your race leaders, though, down to the pit lane. Daniel Eberhardt, first in, first off. He'll maintain the race lead. Let's take a quick opportunity to step aside at lap 74. Daniel Eberhardt leads in the RealSimRacing Full Throttle Cup Series from Texas. And back live from the virtual Texas Motor Speedway is RacespotTV's coverage of the 2020 Real Sim Racing Full Throttle Cup Series, powered by Boosted Club, is continuing here with round number 5, the Boosted Club 125. Happy that you've been with us throughout as we now race into the final 50 laps from Texas. Evan Pasoko, Justin Prince upstairs with you alongside our producer Connor Evatic, and it is Donnie and Daniel Eberhardt in front as we'll roll at a turn number 4. Could this be the final race start? If it does, this could go the distance on the fuel and tires. Green flag flies. A good jump for the 90. He'll pull about 5 car lengths to turn 1.
Yeah, and Eberhardt's been really good on these short runs so far. We've seen once he's gotten up to the front. Now it's the question, though, will we be able to try and hold on to the bottom side, or will we continue to be a rotating wheel of positions for second on back and potentially first on forward?
You can see all of the jockeying for position on that straight shot down the back straightaway for the race leaders right now. The fight is going to be for second because Friedage at the 88 is able to get on through to P2, so McBride down to the inside of Trudell, trying to take away third, and yes, sir, you can book it. So McBride gets that spot. Eberhardt leads, Friedage second. We have seen these two go at it so many times in the history of real sim racing competition. Two of the best drivers in the league. Of course, no surprise that they find each other every now and again, and of course former Aegis teammates between those two. We'll see how aggressive Friedage is going to be on the 90 here.
Yeah, that's going to be very curious, and there's pretty much a lot of aggression here at this spot of the racetrack too. Brett Nichols, he's continuously been shuffled out to the top, but Mogart, he's the type of driver we've seen tonight. If he gets the bottom, he takes it away, and Eberhardt has sacrificed the lead.
And again, the outside line just does not work for the 90. It's almost like if he could only hold it flat open is on the bottom, and anything else he's going to roll out of it, because not only did he lose the race lead, but he lost a handful of spots. In fact, McBride going to go to the race lead as Friedage falls to second. Trudell by the 25, and Chambliss gets sideways. We're 4 wide on the back straightaway at Texas as Mogard's on the very bottom. It was Chambliss who nearly got dumped. He's okay for now, but he's a race car sandwich at a turn 4.
Yeah, that could have been a massive big one, because at that point of the racetrack with the inside safer barrier, you just have the chance of pinballing off the racetrack if you don't lock up the brakes. Already, drivers trying to back out of all this, it looks like, because of the curiousness. Stanford nearly got to the back end of Davis this time in the backstretch.
And it is really close quarters moments here. I think we're all fortunate that these cars still on the racetrack right now at lap 81, and they take, what, 5-10 seconds to kind of take a deep breath, regroup themselves, and they go right back at it. On board here with Parkman, who rides in 7th position. Tried everything he could to get to the inside of Mogard that time at 1 and 2. Couldn't do it. He'll flash it over to the bottom. Just does not have the run necessary. So he'll have to stay back in line and get set to try it again. But up at the front of the field, it is Rhett McBride, race leader, atop Andrew Friedage in P2, who is pushing him down the front straightaway to turn 1.
Well, we discussed this a little bit at Auto Club, right? You can either choose to pass the car, or you can choose to take the run and send it to the back bumper. Andrew's looking like right now he's being more conservative, just sending his runs to the back bumper until he's got the right point he has to be able to use whatever tire skills he has to be able to make a pass.
And you've got more cars in a mix, of course. Nichols on the inside of Kyle Trudell, who's going to drop down from 3rd to 5th. And here's the pullout down to the bottom. Friedage for the race lead. Once they get that nose, there's no coming back. I mean, McBride is so much off the pace at a turn 2. I think if it wasn't for a bit of a pause between the 55 of Nichols and the 90 of Eberhardt, that he would have lost more spots, and there they are. He falls to 4th, now 5th for the race lead. Now with an anchor dragging off of the back bumper, it is way backwards for McBride.
Yeah, he is really in trouble, and so is Kyle Trudell now on that top line. But have to give a shout out again to Nichols. He's performed well, but that 90, he wants second back after giving up all the spots just 5 laps ago.
And look at the 13 mission is Sexton. Oh, they're leaning on each other. McBride took a shot to the quarter panel. They're nearly wrecking behind as there they are, too wide. They are okay, though. Everybody hangs on. And now they're going to catch back up towards the front of the field as Lariah leads that small pack. But back at the front, it is Frenage 1, Everhart 2. The fight's for third as Mogart trying to get back around Nichols for about a second or third time tonight.
And these moves down to the bottom side are beginning intriguing between these two. It's like they want to just control the bubble. If one of them's in the lead, it seems like both of them are content at this point, Evan.
Yeah, that was an interesting move by Frenage. Saw Eberhardt coming, and instead of allowing him to get to his inside, actually took the inside line away, but he kind of had to back off it so much to make that kind of corner entry work that Yanani was able to get around him anyways. Now Frenage with the nose back there. Look at the crossover. Nichols from the high side to the low side, trying to go all the way for the race lead. It was a valiant move that's going to be good enough for P2 as he gets Frenage with it. Mogart on the bumper may push him down the front stretch to help him clear. That was a gutso move by Nichols, using every inch of the back straight away, trying to get up in front, not clear, and contact with Frenage.
Just pushed up the hill that time, it looked like, right into the fender. That time Nichols just fed him the corner panel, and now he's lost the bottom again.
They are 2x2, more tightly packed together now than we have been on most of the restarts this evening. Big winner in all of that chaos, the 15 of Chris Parkman. He'll leapfrog to P3. He gives a shot to Mogart in second. So, I mean, there is a lot of contact for cars doing some 180, 90 miles an hour at the exit of these front stretches and down and into the corners. These drivers giving it 110%, Justin, and maybe that knowledge of knowing that they don't need to come back down to the pit lane at all for fuel or tires. They're going to be able to do this 50-lap run to the end, has emboldened some of them to go harder now than they have been all night. Look at the 15 tires in the grass trying to get to the inside.
Welcome to iRacing, where as soon as you know you're good on fuel, the intensity knob ends up breaking somehow, and that's exactly what's going on. These drivers know they can make it to the end, so they're saying, this might be my best chance to win the race, and that's what they're doing right now. They're trying to fight as hard as they can for as many positions as they can. If you're Eberhart, you're saying, go right ahead, drive like craziness.
And we'll see how long this lasts. Can we get away with this for as of that last time by? 35 laps to go in the race. Look at off of the bubble camera on the roof of the 15 Parkman. Not making a move on a Mogart, so he's not going to pull up to the outside. He wants to run the bottom. Look at him chase down the hill. Frenage behind was trying to make a pass. That's another block, and you've seen these drivers getting real gutsy with those moves. The problem is, at some point, Justin Prince, the cars behind are going to stop cutting them a break, and I've got a feeling that we're going to see a car on the inside wall before we're done.
And it looks like Eberhart got too tight off 4 and has now sacrificed the lead now, Evan. This is very intriguing, and this is one of the main things when it comes to this package. When you have very competitive drivers like this, it's been back and forth for first and second just about every single time the Cup cars have been on this racetrack. We've seen it on national TV. We've seen it in different races for many drivers involved, in fact. We've seen it in official races. That's what we're seeing now. Eberhart, he's stuck on the top, though, so he's going to have to find a way in front of Sexton next.
He's going to make it happen, and the thing is, this is not, your dad or grandfather's NASCAR racing. You don't get to the race lead and run away with it, especially not with this current package. For Mogart, Justin, 2-3 years ago, we could be talking about that being the pass for the race win with 30 laps to go. That's late in races. With this package, it's almost like a semi-draft package and plate race everywhere you go. We'll probably see a dozen or so lead changes between now and the end of the race. Again, Mogart just unable to pull away. So Parkman drafts up. He looks to the inside, and as he dives high, it's actually going to allow Frenage to get to his bottom. So that attempt for the race lead may cost Parkman second, as here comes the 88 car. Had made contact with Mogart last time these two were together. Does he go for the payback? Looking to the quarter panel, now diving to the inside. This is the fight for the race lead.
And I think Mogart knew he got that position. He knew he was in part with some of the fault before with some of the contact, and said, you know what, just take this position and go. And he'll probably come back to fight another day, or try and clear himself.
And that was not a good call there as they came side by side off of the corner and everybody came down on the 90. Mogard just far enough ahead to not get spun off of the nose of Daniel Eberhardt. And, you know, there's more drivers trying to get up and into the conversation for Chambliss and Nichols and McBride, but honestly, those are drivers we've been talking about a lot this evening. It has been the same cast of characters, basically, since about that halfway point now on. We've seen who's got the speed. Now it's time to see who can execute late, and I think more so, just don't make mistakes. Don't give drivers an opportunity to get you out of line as the 90 car swings to the bottom, fighting for second, a little bit tight, and that's going to keep Mogard in P2 on the outside.
It looks like, Evan, the tire wear point of the run is starting to come in because these cars are really starting to get tight, it seems, and the top line starting to work a little bit for defense off 1 and 2 a little bit better. But again, it's been the same thing. You still can only hold on for maybe half a lap of defense before that lap turns into sadness when you realize you lose that position.
And with the 50 to Parkman in line, then Sexton, Chambers, Trudell. I mean, all of these drivers throw them under a blanket. The top 12 cars within a second and a half of each other as down to the inside. And this battle is going to be 3 wide. Sexton trying to go to the inside of Parkman, who is trying to go to the inside of Mogard. Somehow, they end up single file, but those are the moments where it can get crazy.
Yeah, and Sexton is somebody that is really competitive in these Cup cars and can at times show some aggression. That Bobby Dale Earnhardt Legacy eSports machine, I think he knows that this is his best shot at getting a victory so far this season, and he's saying, if you leave an opening, I'm going to take it.
Only having 1 start so far, 3 starts, I should say, for Sexton this season. Leads amongst the teams who only have 1 driver making 3 starts this year, atop of the likes of Ramon Racing, Box Crush Racing, and some of the other drivers. Only driver with 3 starts at a team that's better than him so far this year has been Malik Ray for Joe Gibbs Racing. He's got a front row seat, though, of the battle, as Parkman wanted to go to the inside of Mogard, couldn't do it, Justin. This time by 100 laps down, 25 to go, and if this thing can go the distance, we're going to be on the oldest tires we've seen all night long, which means that these cars could start to struggle with the grip by the time we get close enough to throw the checkered.
I think it absolutely is going to be a struggle for some of these cars on grip, and we're already seeing that with the tightness because of how much short run there is in preference for this fixed setup. So right now, I think it's going to be a situation where clean air is going to help drivers like Freenash. I don't think they're going to pull away, though, compared to a hot track, though, Evan, because with the higher speeds, there's more ability to draft. That's able to keep everyone close. If this was a 115 track, we'd see a bit more separation.
And you can see that single file train as they rocket down the back straightaway, kind of 2 groups. That lead group right there, first position through about, I would say, P8 or so, and then there's a couple of the cars spread out, the top 6, and then you've got another group of about 7 or 8, and then the rest of the field is strung out from that point. But these cars up at the front of the field doing everything they can to keep this one interesting, and there is Sexton once more to the inside on Parkman as he tries to return to the top 4 where he started this race 103 laps ago.
Again, the bottom side left open as soon as you get the quarter panel. Most drivers will just take away the spot as quick as they can because they know if they allow any give or take that 25 for example, they might then try and pounce and say even make it 3 wide at this point of the race. So you have to be smart with the moves, and these drivers have been fairly smart throughout this entire night for the most part, outside the couple drivers who've been trying to clear themselves.
And not to talk just about these same cars all night, Johnson, as Chambliss is able to get up and around Park, but you do have some movers, the likes of Jonathan Cadell, who started in 30th. He's up to 12th. Eric Stanford started 28th. He's in 13th. One driver, surprisingly, we haven't talked a ton about, Joseph Tice, your pole sitter, down into 14th position. He's way down. Look at all the guys up front. So many positions gained, and if you're going to have all those cars moving forward, you got to get back to the mid-pack here, where you see a lot more of the red, the drivers going the opposite direction. Good good fighting going on throughout the pack here. In fact, side by side with Sheen and Cheney for 16th and 17th spot. So again, what you're seeing for the race leaders is happening all throughout the pack, but of course a little bit more consequential when you're dangling a golden ticket to the playoffs in front of the cars up front. Friedange looking for his first win of the season. Eberhardt would love to keep the 88 at victory lane for how many times the opposite has happened.
Yeah, because this is the best Eberhardt's performed in a set of races in at least a couple years. Especially since we've seen how much he struggled when this package first came out for the first good 6 months or so. Started figuring it out at the end of last year's Full Throttle season. Now, he looks like he's right back on par with the performances that you expect to see from Daniel Eberhardt. Problem is, though, he pushed too hard trying to come off of turn 1 and 2. Here comes Mogard, who's not going to give him as much slack as that 90 has for the 8809.
And the 90 just looking to let him go there. Could have backed off of the corner, did not force the issue, tucks in line, and unlike the last couple of times, Eberhardt was able to give away a spot without losing another half dozen with it. He was able to find a spot in line behind the 00 machine, so he'll stay in third spot, and I'm sure he's going to try to wind that thing back up and take another run at him. Here's battling to further back in the pack. That is Grant Davis, who's on the apron, and oh, he almost took out Cadell behind. What a close call as that car hit the flat, pushed up the banking, Justin, and split the difference between Cadell and Stanford. Watch the replay.
And there was a very, very slight amount of contact. You've seen a grazing from Cadell's car, and that was just enough, Evan, to send that 24 sideways. He did a terrific job of saving that on that slide to the apron to make sure he didn't push up across the track into traffic.
So very close calls there. Not the first time we've seen drivers get together. I promise not going to be the last one. We still have 32 cars on the lead lap in this race with less than 20 laps to go. Only the likes of Nieto, Benefield, Bradford, Emery, Parrish, Burke, and Rodden are out of the race from incidents earlier on. It has been, for all intents and purposes, Justin, for what we kind of thought may happen here at Texas. Yes, we've seen those crazy moves, but they haven't always led to junk. It has been a very well-run and entertaining race so far, and this boosted 125 going to be the boosted 15 this time by as we ride down to 15 laps to go.
Yeah, that's been the case throughout this entire night. Most drivers have not pushed the issue over aggressively, and I think that's a good thing because many drivers have had some bad luck at the mile-and-a-half circuits where they try to push early, they end up with a destroyed race car. Guess where they finish? Back part of the field. Tonight, we've only had a couple drivers with major significant damage issues tonight. Everybody else has been able to keep their cars clean, and that's why for 25 of the competitors, they're within 10 seconds rather.
Officially down the longest run of the race as there's some action further back with the 55 of Rhett Nichols. He just got passed by Jonathan Cadell, who's broken into the top 10 for the first time this evening. And at 19, between the aegis entry of Eric Stanford followed him through. But a crossover by the 55 going to keep this battle on going, so they will not roll over. You saw Pika Moore side by side in front of them. That was Lariah McBride, 7th and 8th position. So a lot of stuff going on through the top 10 as it seems like Andrew Friedange has settled in as your race leader up front.
Yeah, he's currently one of the fastest cars on the track at the moment. This group is where some other competitors are running decent times, but not as quick as the leaders. The comparison, Evan, about 1.4 seconds a fall for the top drivers. The leaders running 29.6s. The cars you're seeing in this second group of pack members are running 29.9s. That's not going to cut it unless they get some luck.
And of course, if you're just tuning in with us, this is the 5th round of the 2020 RealSimRacing Full Throttle Cup Series. Every race on a Monday night here on RacespotTV is powered by Boosted, the place where gamers and creators go to monetize digitally. We'll build up free e-commerce stores and help get sponsorships for those looking to build their brand online. Go to boosted.club for more information. You can also see the Twitter handle down at the bottom right-hand side of your screen. You can follow them at Boosted Club for more. Also, give our channel a follow at RealSimRacing for more information, not only on when these broadcasts are going up, but as well how maybe you can get involved, if not for this Cup Series, for the Winter Series, and maybe some other things that may be in the works for later on this season. But, of course, you're seeing the front of the field right now, Justin. This is the most separation we've seen in the top three all night long. Fridaj, 2/10 in front, probably the biggest advantage we've had yet. So if Mogard P2, Eberhard in third, still think they've got something in the tank for the two-time defending champion, now's the time to show it. That time by 10 laps to go.
And I think that's going to really help Fridaj off the corner now, because Mogard just went tight. And the more these two fight, the more this is going to help Fridaj.
And this is the point that I mentioned earlier, that at the end of the race, you want the best tires you've had all night, not the worst. This race restarted on lap number 77, and now at lap 117, we're talking about one of the longest runs we've seen all night to 40 laps. So these tires have never been worse tonight. You talk about Mogard pushing and getting tight. These race cars are not going to do what you wanted them to do and what you've been able to do with them all night long. Here's this battle further back in the pack. That was Stanford sticking his nose out. He'll tuck a line behind Brett McBride, who's back in 9th position. He's been a top 5 car for the most of the evening, but late in this run has been going the wrong way, and he's may struggle here to hang on to a top 10 spot.
Yeah, and this is the type of battles across the field where if you're Fridaj, you're looking at your timing screens and saying, please do not get tight now. Do not collect other drivers in this grouping, because I'm in a great situation with that 0.4 of a second lead. And this is now exactly where we've seen the drivers who are going back and forth so aggressively starting to fall off. McBride, we talked about him a lot. He tried to make a lot of moves. The 55 tried to make a lot of moves. He's in that grouping of race cars. So a lot of the cars who use their tires early, this the results right here.
And we kind of expected that to be the case. I mean, these guys they weren't just driving aggressively. I think a lot of the time they've been driving over their heads. As the 24 machine of Davis to the inside of Tice for 13th and 14th. Joseph Tice really probably wanting to take back this green flag run after he's dropped off from pole. And you can see the move there by Eric Stanford, who's able to get around lapped traffic in the 77. And Nick Caldwell, who's a lap down with James Pascarella. And talking about those names, Justin, a surprise spotter with us for this event.
Yes, indeed. That driver spotting for James Pascarella, and keep an eye on the 77 tonight, who has had trouble all night, unfortunately for him, Santino Ferrucci. That is a familiar name because he was amongst some of the drivers who competed, of course, in the IndyCar Challenge this past weekend and in the IMSA Super Saturday. The connection came in part because James Pascarella was the spotter for Ferrucci in the IMSA event. Had actually in sim also ran with Deck Sabers logos on his IMSA car. So, in turn tonight, Santino Ferrucci is now in the spotter stand for the 77 in the closing stages of this race.
And it has not been the night that Pascarella would want after starting in 15th. I mean, that was a position that could have shown a lot of promise, but his night did not end well, so we'll see if the bad result puts an end to Santino Ferrucci's spotting career, or if they're going to make another shot at it when the Full Throttle Cup Series returns next Monday night from Thunder Valley and Bristol Motor Speedway. This time by, though, at the very front of the field, as you see Mogard and Parkman 3rd and 4th, still to decide who's going to finish these spots off. Andrew Fridaj takes 3 laps to go. We had questioned, would he misstep this bad start to the season? 4 weeks without a win, not even top 10 in the points. What was the deal? But he has had the speed, and I think, Justin, he just needed the green flag run. Started this race in 38th position of the 39 cars who started it, and this time by, he's going to be looking for popsicle 6 of the year with an advantage over second on the back of half a second.
Well, don't forget Andrew in a lot of the races too, Evan, throughout this campaign. He was involved in the first big ones of the races. Auto Club, he was involved. Atlanta, he was up towards the front. Got involved in an incident, if I remember correctly, the race train, or should I say Homestead, Miami, rather, in terms of some of the incidents. He's just not had the luck, the 88 machine. This time, he had the luck. The incidents have stayed away from him, and now he's been able to get away from everybody else with a clean car for the white flag.
Final time around from the Great American Speedway for Andrew Ferdinand. Has run a masterful race at incredible plus 37 spots as this fight for third going to come all the way down to the wire. Mogard being chased down by Parkman, who's got to run. Can't make the move into 3. It'll probably settle itself down. And
he was able to carve his way up to the field early in this race.
Off-season Icebreaker Winter Series Championship, but there he is on the front straightaway, and he celebrates as the first winner in RSR at the all-new Texas Motor Speedway. Good shot there as he celebrates on the front stretch. As I mentioned, the 27th time he's won in Full Throttle Cup Series competition. He is by far and large the all-time wins leader, having won now more than 25% of all the starts he's made. That is the highest of all drivers who have made more than 10 starts, with the exception of Landon Huffman, who was able to take home a handful of wins, 10 in 37 starts a couple of years ago when this series was still in its early days. But as Ferdinand is going to take it the wrong way around for the Polish victory lap, we will take a look top to bottom at RacespotTV full race results. Ferdinand takes the checkered 0.8 of a second, final margin of victory over for Daniel Eberhardt, I should say, atop with Andrew Ferdinand, and Jared Bogard comes home in third. We'll try to chat with those guys in just a second. Chris Parkman finishes P4, and Gary Sexton gets P5, so good results for those drivers, along with Michael Laraya in P6. Brian Chambliss comes home in 7th. It is David Washington in position 8, with Jonathan Cadell a race high 9th, and Eric Stanford rounding out your top 10.
Brett McBride showed some great short run speed throughout this race, but on the one long run, his tires went off a cliff. He came home 11th. Brett Nichols was also in the same boat in 12th. Kyle Trudell as well in the same boat in 13th. Grant Davis came up 14th. And our pole sitter tonight, Joseph Tice, hit the outside wall during the long run, ended up damaging his right front fender, lost time, repaired the fender rather, got back to 15th. Kyle Kamer came home 16th, Liam Sheen 17th, Bobby Cheney 18th, with Steve Durham and Thomas George rounding up the top 20.
And it's been a while since I've been able to say this. This whole page of cars still on the lead lap for 21st, Jerry Rittenberg, Matt Miller, Sean Kalis, Blake O'Connell, who was up front but unfortunately finishes in 24th, and Kobe Bunka through P25. Steve Soa finishes in 26th position, Daniel Scott in 27th, with Trevor Valderrama 28th, Andrew Pellegrini in 29th position, and the final car on the lead lap is Michael Kaczynski.
James Pasquarella came home 31st. The only car 1 lap down. The rest of the drivers, multiple laps down. Nicholas Caldwell ended up hitting the wall at one point in the closing stage of the race. Came off in turn 4, went through the grass, had to come down to the pit lane, blew a right front tire, comes home 6 laps down in 32nd. John Rodden came home 33rd. Bradley Burt 34th, 82 laps down. Shane Parrish 35th, 86 laps down after contact with Anthony Emery, who finished 36th. Jacob Bradford ended his race early in 37th, with Adam Benefiel having technical issues pulling off the track in 38th. Sam Nieto was the first DNF of the night, 115 laps down in 39th.
Look top to bottom at tonight's Boosted.Club full race results, the place where gamers and creators go to monetize digitally. They'll build free e-commerce stores and help get sponsorships for those looking to build their brand. Go to Boosted.Club for more information. Let's kick things right off as we head into our post-race interviews, and I'll start things with the driver of the Double O machine of Jared Bogard, who started way back in 27th position, and it comes home with a 3rd place result tonight here from Texas. Jared, congratulations on the win. For a new Texas, you sure had fun coming through traffic. Just tell us about how this race shaked out.
Yeah, more better than we thought it did. That's the best I've ran there all week, so I'm glad we're able to figure it out there. I don't know, we learned, like I said, learned things all week and applied it here tonight, and it seemed to work out good. I didn't figured we'd get to the top 10 and we were going to be happy with that, but to come home 3rd and have a shot at it at the end is pretty good.
I believe just looking at the stats that you're going to be, I think, one of only 2 or 3 drivers now that has a top 10 finish in 4 of these first 5 weeks. And of course, with this one, you pick up a second top 5 finish as well. So it has been a very good start to the season. You guys have been running well and are up with, the likes of Daniel and Andrew and guys who have a lot of wins in this Full Throttle Cup Series. What is it going to take to make that extra step to kind of calm your nerves and get that win, which would lock you into the postseason?
Just gotta figure out how to set the tires a little bit there. Daniel did a good job there. I thought we were pacing ourselves pretty good. I think we went probably about 5 to 10 laps too early there. Just gotta figure out how to set the tires a little bit longer, a little bit better than these guys, and we'll be right there. But I mean, we were there with them, and we hung with them, so it's a starting point for sure.
It has been a lot of the same, some unique characteristics here and there, but 3 weeks in a row of doing 125 laps at intermediate racetracks. I know you'll enjoy a change. However, that change of pace comes in the form of Bristol, which might as well put it up there with the ranks of Daytona and Talladega in terms of who knows what the hell is going to happen. So what's the game plan headed off to round 6?
Yeah, pretty much. Just avoid the wrecks. Hopefully there ain't a lot, but like I said, it's Bristol, so pretty much anything can happen there. But we'll go to work and start testing and be ready for that next week. But just try to avoid the wrecks and be there at the end too. I think if you're there at the end, you got a pretty good shot at top 5, if not, then win.
We look forward to seeing how Thunder Valley shakes out. We'll let you jet out of here, though, Jared. Before we do, sponsors, shout-outs to those good folks. Who do you want to give a call to?
Yeah, I got to thank Ben at Dirt Race Central, Splash and Go Graphics, About Power Computers, Twitchy Race Reports, and all the guys at MOSRN for helping us out and sticking with us. Thank you guys for the broadcast as well, and congratulations Andrew on the win.
We appreciate you being a part of this series on a Monday night, so we also appreciate the time, Jared. Congratulations on the top 3.
Yep, thank you.
The third place finisher here from Texas, and moving up one spot, Daniel Eberhardt, P2, Justin here with him.
Yes, indeed, Daniel, a heck of a race tonight. Had some interesting moments, to say the least. First of all, how would you describe how this race was for you tonight?
The package is crazy at Texas. It was my first couple of laps on it tonight. I haven't really had, this week to practice, but we went into the practice room tonight, and the draft, it doesn't really have a arrow push, but tonight it was weird because it felt like you were just flying the whole time. Like you're wide open through 3 and 4, 1 and 2, you're backing up the corner trying to get it down to the bottom, and it's like going through 1 and 2 is like 10 lanes wide. It's just a crazy reconfiguration of Texas. It's nothing like it used to be, and it's just flat out wide open.
Yeah, it's a very intriguing track at this point with the way it's been arranged, but it was a very intriguing few moments when you were the leader. Many times you had a lot of give tonight. What went through your strategy of sacrificing the lead and trying to back off a couple times when you got to the point?
I was working on, to be honest with you, it's like plate racing. You're trying to shuffle people out. Like, if somebody I felt like somebody was fast, I would drop back behind them and then try to get in line about 3rd or 4th and then come back up through there and try to make passes just to get more people up through the pack. Like slower guys up through the pack that I thought wouldn't be in contention with me and Andrew. And, Jared was pretty quick all night, so I was trying to shuffle him back a couple times, but it's playing the draft. You got to play the draft in this new package, and I was trying to do it. I even tried doing it to my own teammate Andrew tonight. I tried shuffling him out, and he ran really hard all night, and he was the best of the best tonight.
Next track, though, is going to be right towards your wheelhouse from prior to this draft package. Low downforce. Christian Schauder described this to me last night. Bristol feels like no downforce. Your thoughts on Bristol?
It's short track racing. You know that there's going to be a bunch of us in there, and it's going to be weaving in and out of traffic. And if hopefully we get a long run, but you never know. It's it's a half mile. It's a half mile of terror to me. It's like a kind of a nightmare sometimes, and sometimes it's a fun racetrack. You can work the top and work the bottom if you save your tires. So it's going to be really cool to run it, and I hope that this package really comes into play with the low downforce.
Anyone you want to thank before you let you go?
Y'all seen it tonight. I had a new paint scheme out there. I wanted to thank SK Sim Racing, Bruzzy Racewear, all they're doing for me. It's pretty cool having them on board. Bruzzy's a sim racing thing where you put on gloves and have sim racing shoes. It's a pretty neat company. Judd Danielson owns it, and I want to thank all my teammates: Dave Washington, Eric Stanford, Stephen Durham, Kyle Kamer, and Andrew Freenage. They're great teammates. Got to thank the good Lord above and my fiance and my grandmother who watch each and every one of these races. It's fun racing with you guys also. And thank y'all for putting on this broadcast.
Thank you very much for the time, Daniel. Congratulations on the second place finish. Showed some good speed throughout the night.
Thank you, Justin.
That was Daniel Eberhardt coming home in second. Evan, over to you.
Well, it took a few more weeks than we would have anticipated, but once more, Andrew Fritas is at RealSimRacing Full Throttle Cup Series victory lane, doing it tonight here from the Texas Motor Speedway. Andrew, congratulations. No shock to see the car not qualify and try to come up and through traffic, but P38 to P1, and to finally get the first win at this 2020 Cup Series campaign had to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, just I've been starting in the back. I just the focus this year has been on Road to Pro, so just haven't been able to get the laps. Before we were doing thousands of laps, maybe I'm getting hundreds. So I just want to respect these guys, and I don't know what it's gonna do on cold tires. I don't want to cause anything. So that's the reason we've been starting back there. We can get a lot of practice in the pre-races, and I mean, this just feels incredible. I really didn't have expectations coming into tonight. I watched a bunch of AFIX in the pro race, and it just did not seem like my style of racing. But we were able to drive through the field and pull it off, and I got to say, this is one of the top wins that I've ever had. I feel amazing after that one.
Of course, we've just been talking with Daniel and Jared about it. This is an all-new Texas Motor Speedway. In fact, kind of the newest track in the sim, although it is just a rescan. But not oftentimes do we get an updated look at a track, and it completely changes how it drives. Just describe Texas this time around versus what you guys were doing on this same racetrack last year.
Yeah, last year, it was, I think we were full throttle for the first few laps, kind of like we were here, but last year it's a very rough surface. The tires go a lot quicker, and by the end of it, we're sliding around kind of like the old package. Here, I think we were flooring it through 3 and 4 pretty much the whole run there. And 1 and 2 is very interesting. I compare it to Kentucky, but a lot smoother. You kind of just dive it to the bottom and let it go up. I'm excited when this wears out. Maybe we'll be running up in the wall in 1 and 2. But if you ask me, I like the old Texas, but I'm gonna give this one a chance. Let the asphalt wear out a little bit. Maybe we'll get a rescan and. We'll see, but I definitely, with the lower horsepower package, it's kind of tough when you're, full throttle everywhere but 1 and 2.
Of course, now this win makes things a little bit easier on you. Of course, I don't really suspect that you were sweating not having that win yet, still up in the playoff points. But now you know that you'll officially have an opportunity to defend that championship and head to the postseason this year. So 15 weeks to kind of just survive and try to get as many wins, to get as many bonus points headed into the round of 16 as you could. And Bristol is up next, which, we can pick a track here. And for the most part, you can relate it to another track. We can kind of try to tie all these together in similarities, but I mean, Bristol Motor Speedway, truly a track that can't be compared to anything but itself.
Yeah, I think I'm more excited to see the low downforce package in this full throttle season. Finally, that's my style of car. I love that car. I've said it before, and I'll stick with it. I don't like the low downforce, so I'm excited to have that. I love Bristol. I did some practice there. It looks like the bottom might actually come in with the top. I love that track, and everybody in this league produces such good race. I'm hoping for green flag runs, and it'll be a fun race to watch next week.
Race winner this afternoon from Texas Motor Speedway. Andrew, who do you want to give a shout to?
Just want to say thanks to you guys. I mean, you do a heck of a job broadcasting every race and admitting and everything you've done. I've been here 4 years, and it's just I'll keep coming back. You guys do such a great job. All the drivers in this league, I have such respect, and there's a lot of talent. There was a lot of talent last year, and this year it just amped up. And I'm so grateful to drive against all these drivers, all the fans. I really, really hope we put on a good show. This is tough times in our world, and I hope we gave some entertainment. I know we're all stuck in our house, but I hope that was a good show. My family for putting up with it. Lone Line Racing, I went over there for Road to Pro. Big thanks to them. Everybody from Aegis, David Washington. You know, I would never be in any spot without it, and I think that's right about it.
Well, it is, as I mentioned, as you came across the start-finish line, 27th win in the Full Throttle Cup Series for you. The first as a new tally begins for this 2020 campaign. Andrew, thanks for being a part of the series. Thanks for chatting. We'll see you in Bristol.
Thanks so much. Everyone be safe out there.
Race winner of tonight's Boosted Club 125, and always good to chat with our top finishers. So another big thanks not only to Andrew but to Daniel and Jared for chatting with us. Just 5 races now into the books, and of course the theme that we talked about headed into this evening continues. 5 races, 5 different winners. I'm not sure if we saw that at any single point all of last season.
Yeah, it was an entertaining race, and I found the interesting dynamic of they felt like there wasn't too much fall off in 3 and 4, especially to be interesting, because that's kind of just the theme of how you see these race pavements go for these race tracks. But here's the interesting thing for Bristol, Evan, because Bristol's going to be an air difficult challenge. It's difficult to pass there. It's an understatement. With the discussion with Christian Challenger I was referencing to in the interview with second place, the track is very difficult in terms of the handling. The track is difficult to pass on, especially if you try and pass the bottom. The top line very dominant. There's going to be a lot of these drivers taking notes, I think, throughout the week with the Coca-Cola iRacing Series going to Bristol and the Pro Invitational to see what they can do to try and get passes done when RSR competition heads to the thrilling racetrack.
Let's do up next for round number 6, but until then, that's it for us as round number 5 falls into our rear view mirror. Want to stay up with all things RSR? You could go give us a like at facebook.com/RealSimRacing, and you could also follow us on Twitter at RealSimRacing for more. For RacespotTV and for the broadcast crew tonight, for downstairs, our producer Connor Ematic, for Justin Prince, and myself, Evan Pisoko. Thanks for tuning in, and congratulations to Andrew Ferdinand. We'll be back next Monday, April the 6th from Bristol. That race and every race of the 2020 RealSimRacing Full Throttle Cup Series, powered by Boosted, going to be found right here on RaceSpot TV. Until next time, good night.